Okay, after having watched the Marriott video, I hope you would see that they as a company have declared certain things to be core values. And really, we just want to kind of wrestle with what we think, um, not only what are their core values, which I think you heard in the video, but what do they hope these values will do? What's the end result of establishing and clarifying and understanding what their core values are and communicating them? It's one thing to say I've got core values. It's another thing to be able to communicate them clearly enough that they have an impact upon the way that we act and the way that we behave. Another question is, what is a key to effective core values? These questions will actually be in your Ethnos assignment, and so I encourage you to fill those out and answer those questions as you engage with the material. Next, we're going to look at the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps has a series of core values that they operate off of as well. Again, just examples of how core values are used in today's world. There's our honor, courage, and commitment with a nod towards this lead by example core value. Now, the Marines, I think, are interesting because of the armed forces. They, I think, view themselves as a very high quality form of military, and even their marketing for a while was, we're looking for a few good men. And so as they were thinking about it, they were looking to recruit those who were of very high caliber to be a part of the Marine Corps. Now, I wasn't a Marine, I wasn't in the Marines, and so I can't speak from firsthand. And then that being said, I'm also not discrediting any of the other armed services. I very much appreciate what happens by those who serve in our military and the commitment that they make to our nation to do that. But honor, courage, and commitment are three words that very much inspire the Marine Corps. And really, I had a statement written down here that I thought was interesting about these core values as it related to the Marine Corps. It says this: the Marine Corps core values of honor, courage, and commitment have gained increased prominence in recent years. As an emphasis on performing morally on and off duty, the concept of core values has been infiltrated into many aspects of the Marine life, beginning in recruit training and continuing into combat. The warrior ethos provides guidance to Marines in difficult ethical situations and acts as a reminder to provide good order and discipline. And so these three core values, they hope, will not only just be words on a badge, but that they would drive the way that the Marine would act in combat and in everyday life. And if you've ever met a Marine, you know that they're Marines for life. And these core values, I think, really do infiltrate what they do. So again, just examples of core values that exist out there. Ethics. As we consider to define ethics, ethics are different than core values. Ethics are the layer that happened as a result of our core values. They become the principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. So they're like rules that we put in place based on what it is that we value. Or they're standards by which we evaluate and determine what is the logical course of action in any given situation. So ethics have a little bit of a different flavor than core values. Core values are priorities that I hold on to, and ethics are then the rules that allow me to achieve those priorities. An example of this is the Billy Graham rule. And just today, we learned that Billy Graham had passed away, but this rule was based on his desire to make sure that he had a life of integrity with those that he came in contact with. And it was a practice among Christian leaders, Protestant Christian leaders, in which they avoid spending time alone with women to whom they are not married. And so Billy Graham would say that he just would not have dinner with another woman alone that was not his wife, and he took flack for it. It is adopted as a display of integrity. It means a means of avoiding sexual temptation and to avoid any appearance of doing something considered morally objectionable, but has been criticized as being sexist. Even as early or late as the news during the last election with Vice President Mike Pence, when he was running, he was put under fire for this particular rule or ethic that he had placed in his life, and they questioned that pretty intensely for him. And so it's interesting how ethics come about. Again, there's a desire, a priority in life not to break integrity, and then there's a rule that we put in place in order to ensure that we don't do that. And so the priority is the core value, and then the rule is the ethic. It looks a little bit like this. We know when we look at an iceberg is just that's above the surface. It's just a small portion of the picture of what's going on below the surface. Well, the top of the surface, above the surface, is the behavior that we see in people's lives or in our own lives. As we look at the behavior, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. What happens next is we have the rest of the iceberg that is lying below the surface. And it's a pretty incredible thought to think about how much surface our iceberg is really lingering below the surface. Well, our core values and ethics are the same. So we have our core values as kind of the deep foundation, the root of how we function, and then our ethics or our convictions are those things that are formed. Our values form our convictions and ethics, and so based on what it is that we value deeply, we will then create rules or ethics by which we then dictate how we behave, and so our ethics shape our behavior. And so in the example of the Billy Graham rule, then the value is to value integrity and to avoid sexual temptation. The ethic is to not be alone with a woman that's not your wife. And then the behavior is when those requests come to actually say, no, I can't do that. And so that's the behavior that happens. And so that becomes a pretty clear definition of what core values and ethics are. We are going to continue to look at how we know which ones are our core values and ethics, and the impact that they have on our lives. And so join us for the next video, and you will be able to continue on in the lesson.